Alright, settle down class. Welcome back to this week's episode of Destiny 101, where we take a look in depth at Destiny. Today we're going to be looking at armor and just all the things. Armor can usually take a backseat in the loot pool just because you're using guns most of the time, but armor is arguably just as important as the weapons in Destiny. So you may be asking, what should I look for on my armor piece? Well, there's going to be stats that roll with every armor piece that you collect. What are some good stat rolls? Well, it's kind of subjective, kind of an iffy topic because it can be really anything you want. So, for instance, there's a total of 6 different stats that you can, get rolls into. And looking on the screen here, this is what they do. You have mobility for walking speed and jump height, resilience for how much damage you can take before you die, recovery, which is health recovery and class ability regen, discipline, which is grenade recharge, intellect for super recharge, strength, melee recharge. So, which one is the best? Like I said, it kind of depends on what you're going for with your playstyle or if you're going for a certain build. For this video, we're only going to be taking a look at stat rolls and only a couple of mods. Mods will be in a separate video coming in the future. So if you do want to see that, feel free to subscribe and leave a like down below. But in any event, let's go ahead and talk about which ones you should prioritize when you're making a build. So for me personally, I like to go with recovery, discipline, intellect. I kind of stay away from mobility, resilience, and strength because I don't use them that often and I don't really see a huge benefit to mobility, in all honesty. I think the weakest one out of all of them is mobility, but that is just my opinion. I personally don't see the benefit of having really good walk speed. For instance, this is a god roll, or quote unquote god roll for me, that I use. It has a lot of recovery and discipline, and I did put a discipline mod on this, which gives plus 10 discipline to its respective stat. And you can put plus 10 onto any respective stat if you have the mod for it. It is something to note though, if you do toggle the bottom, it shows you how much total you have. If you just go back to the normal screen, it will show your recharge rate. But for me, I like to go with discipline because this season's modifier, Oppressive Darkness, is so powerful for a solo build, giving you extra damage. So I essentially get my grenade every 30 seconds, which is so powerful. But you look here of all the other mods that you could incorporate into that first slot, they're all really useful at the end of the day. So it just depends on which ones you want to go for. But for me, like I said, discipline is usually what I go for, and recovery is such a good perk because it gets your health back so much quicker. And it also helps with your class ability. For instance, I'm using an exotic called the Sanguine Alchemy, which weapon kills extend the rift's duration. And since my recovery is so high, what I can do is essentially just get 2 or 3 kills inside my rift, and my rift will be ready to go for the next thing is over. So it's so strong, and you could literally just hold down a point of the map. For instance, here's an example of how I do this. So right now we're in the healing rift, and you see blood magic, which literally just stops the healing rift timer from going down, and we have a total of 14 seconds. And it just continuously, we have that ticked up for most of the time, and we can essentially just pop our next rift and then in the next couple of seconds, which is super strong. And you can do this with an empowering rift. Of course, I usually go with healing rift just because it increases survivability by that much more, but if you want to do more damage, that's always an option. But in any event, if you guys are looking for specific roles, what are some good endgame things to do? Well, you can get them from multiple vendors, you can get them from raids and all that good stuff. And the dungeon is also another great way to farm good stat roll armor. What you should be on the lookout for mainly, in my opinion, is just always go for recovery, intellect, and discipline. Mobility is kind of an iffy perk for me because I don't see the benefit to just walking faster in this game, in all honesty. And for resilience, you're not going to notice that in PvE all that often. It's more of a PvP thing where you can survive an extra couple of shots. But also, then you have strength. Strength is an arguable one, depending on what build you're going for. But for me, since I mainly run Warlock in this instance, and we're going for Devour here, I don't really need the melee that often to proc. So just kind of keeping it kind of low is generally what I like to do because it just seems like an extra waste of stat roll if I get it in strength. But for the other, your health is split up into 4 quarters, if you will, and there will be a point where you are at a red bar and it only goes up to a certain max, and it will wait there a little bit. No amount of recovery will change how the pause that will happen. So you could have 1,000 recovery, for instance, which is not possible, but it will still take the time. And also another thing to note that I did forget to mention, that going over 100 will not have any other benefits like stated in the game. So it's important just to not go too far over 100. If you have 101, that's okay. I think in this video I did have a 101 recovery stat, which is not obviously like the best case scenario, but it's not bad either because it's only one stat that is being not used, I guess, if you want to put it like that. But yeah, and if we just keep going off that, there's so many fun things you can do with armor, and I think recommend builds, but that will be for a separate video. And like I said, mods are a huge draw with armor, and you can kind of build it the way you want to and all that stuff. And even with the prismatic recaster for this season, I know it's kind of bugged right now, and I'm honestly don't even bother using it, but it works sometimes, which is kind of weird. But sometimes I can just get an absolute butt roll on it. If you guys use it, you know what I'm talking about. But it's also important to make sure you never go over like too far over 100, like I stated before. So make sure you kind of keep it within the 100 range. But like I said, if you are going for a solo build, I do recommend going high discipline and high recovery. Try to not go too deep into intellect, because for my thing is you're going to be killing things most of the times in this game, so there's no point in even doing it. And also if you're running masterwork things, you're going to be getting orbs plenty of times, so it was obviously you're not going to get it as quick, but it's still get it rather quickly, and you don't need to be popping your super like every 20 seconds. On the screen there I just showed Benedict is you can spend tokens over there and to get high stat rolls. I believe I had a 64 chest piece in here, but a thing to note with all raid things before Forsaken is that they do not take any of the newer mods, so that is something to note. If you want to use something like Charged with Light, for instance, which is a really powerful mod, it is important to make sure that it is a up-to-date thing. And also masterworking armor is extremely important, so be very cautious whenever you're going to do this, because you want to save your materials because it's rather expensive. You need enhancement prisms and enhancement cores. The ways you can get those are from Nightfalls, and I recommend doing the harder difficulties if you can possibly get a team, or you can just farm for Ascendant shards, or you can even go to the gunsmith as he sells them too. But there are multiple ways to get them, but Nightfalls are probably one of the, like, it's not as expensive if you do it that way. But yeah guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Hope you all found this useful. The next video in the 101 series is going to be about armor mods and elemental things, so if you guys are interested in that, feel free to check it out and subscribe. It really just helped the channel out in the early stages, and it really does mean a lot to all those who are watching. We recently just hit 3,000 views on one of our videos, which is crazy, so I want to thank you all personally. Just remember, at the end of the day, try to play to your strength, whatever you want to do. There's no perfect way to play a character in Destiny, so just do whatever you feel like you are most comfortable doing. So if you want to run nades or a super build, definitely go for discipline and intellect. But if you want a high survivability, maybe resilience and recovery is something you want to go for. But that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys all found this useful. I will see you all in the next one. Have a good one.